Welcome to SBY Spotlight, where I shine a light on some of my favorite guests and topics that I think you'll enjoy. Hi, I'm Sarah Beth, and I'm an online yoga teacher leading millions to get fit, happy, and healthy through yoga. And today, I bring you my friend Jess from HerMoodMentor. Jess is a period coach who has helped hundreds of women feel better and improve their quality of life by balancing out their hormones throughout their menstrual cycle. And together, we've developed a menstrual cycle yoga calendar that I'll tell you more about at the end of this video. Today, we're talking about our menstrual cycles and how you can balance out your yoga and exercise with the hormonal fluctuations and changes that you experience throughout your month. Before we get started, let me know in the comments below what yoga videos, tips, and tricks work best for you during the hardest part of your menstrual cycle. Now, let's get to it. Hi, Jess. Tell us a little about yourself, your business, and what you do.
Hi, Sarah. So I am an integrative menstrual health coach, and I help people who are experiencing premenstrual symptoms, PMS-like symptoms, basically disappear those symptoms.
That's really cool. I didn't know that that was a thing. And I think a lot of people don't know that that's a thing, that you can actually get assistance and coaching and guidance for PMS. And you mentioned PMDD, hormonal fluctuations, basically everything that we go through, right? As women.
Yeah, we feel like we just have to suck it up and push through. And a lot of times we don't even recognize that the symptoms that we are experiencing are linked to our menstrual cycle, but you do not have to continue to suffer through that. There are ways to feeling better. So absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today, because I know in our most recent call, we talked about the menstrual cycle, and it was so enlightening to start to think about how our lives are moving in this cyclical fashion. And if we can align with that, how we can feel better as a result. So I wanted to ask you before we get started, just to be really clear, what is a period coach?
Period coach essentially teaches you what the menstrual cycle is, what the phases are, helps you identify where you are in your cycle, what falls into a healthy range, and what may be falling outside of that. The menstrual cycle is deemed the fifth vital sign. So just like your body temperature or heart rate, it is a measure of your overall health. And so a period coach essentially helps you improve your overall health through improving and monitoring your menstrual health, but it requires education and support because we didn't get any of this in school. So that's what a period coach does.
Cool. Again, never knew that that was a thing. So that's really cool until I met you and I was like, wow, you're changing lives. So what is PMS? What is PMDD? And how are those things different?
So everyone is familiar with PMS. It's kind of become a cultural joke in some ways, right? But PMS is specifically a hormone imbalance. And it is different from PMDD in a number of ways. So PMS is premenstrual syndrome. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. They are related. The symptoms are similar, but one is a much more severe version. PMDD is technically a reproductive mood disorder, where PMS is a hormone imbalance. And so the symptoms do cross over, things like irritability, bloating, breast tenderness, mood swings, things like that. But the way that it's presenting in PMDD is just much more severe. So there are three differences: the causation, right? Hormone imbalance versus mood disorder. Then the duration. So PMS is happening for, 3 to 5, maybe 7 days, but generally in that 3 to 5 day range, people are experiencing symptoms before they menstruate. Whereas PMDD can happen up to 14 or more days of the cycle. So much longer that these symptoms are happening. And then the third difference is the severity. So PMS symptoms are uncomfortable, a nuisance, you notice them, but they don't really hold you back from living your day-to-day life. PMDD can be very debilitating. You cannot function normally. You can't go to work. You can't maintain relationships. I mean, it's very disruptive to the individual's quality of life.
I knew a friend that had PMDD and it was absolutely debilitating for her. It's crazy how much different it is from PMS, yet it seems like it really goes underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed. She lived with it for so long before she finally got that diagnosis.
Yeah, the average year range for people seeking a diagnosis to get accurately diagnosed is 12 years. And 90% of people living with this disorder are misdiagnosed or left undiagnosed. So the range, they're saying like 1 in 20 people or 1 in 20 females are experiencing premenstrual dysphoric disorder. But since 90% of them are misdiagnosed, I mean, I think that ballpark estimate statistic is just way off. I think it's a lot more than 1 in 20.
Right. Well, hopefully this video can help shed light for some people out there who might be experiencing it and haven't received any clarity or help or support up until this point. Can you give us an idea of what a healthy menstrual cycle looks like?
Yeah, so a healthy menstrual cycle from bleed to bleed would fall approximately within a range of 24 to 36 days. So we always hear like a 28-day cycle. That's a kind of an arbitrary number. As long as you're falling regularly within that 24 to 36-day range approximately, that would be considered healthy. Also, we look at, how much blood are you losing per menstrual cycle. If you're losing more than 4.5 tablespoons of blood, or maybe almost 3 ounces, that would be considered heavy bleeding, and that can indicate an underlying health condition. Also, if you're losing less than 30 milliliters in a menstrual cycle, I know I'm using a lot of different measurements, but using a menstrual cup is a really great way to just monitor and measure how much you're losing, because it's all right there. They are usually markers of measurement, but those are some of the signs we look at. Also, color, consistency of menstrual blood, but most primarily symptoms. If you're experiencing symptoms, it's pointing to body systems as far as what's going on in your cycle, what body systems need support. And you should never be suffering severely from any premenstrual symptoms. That is a sign that something is happening and we need to take some action.
So a normal healthy menstrual cycle has different phases to it, right?
Correct. 4 phases.
Can you tell us more about those phases?
Sure. So day 1, the first day that you are fully bleeding, would be called, day 1 of your menstrual cycle. So that is the menstrual phase. And that can last up to 7 days, but you shouldn't be bleeding longer than 8 days in a cycle. If you were bleeding 10, 12 days in a cycle, that would be a sign that something is awry. So that phase generally is lasting 3 to 5 days for most of us, called the menstrual phase. And then you move into the follicular phase as the second phase. And this is where your hormone levels are starting to rise and you're preparing to ovulate. You're not yet ovulating, but all of those hormones are gaining to push you towards ovulation. That follicular phase can last around, 7 to 10 days, depending on how long your cycle is. And then you move into the ovulatory phase, which is where your ovary releases the egg. Estrogen is really high at this time. You're going to feel more energetic, more social at this time. And that range of dates, so you only ovulate for 1 day, but that period of time when those hormones are at that peak level there is about 4 days. And then you move into the 4th phase of the menstrual cycle, which is the longest phase. It can be 10 to 14 days on average, but sometimes for some of us, it's even longer than that. And that is called the luteal phase, also known as the premenstrual phase, the phase before you bleed. And this is where symptoms will arise for people. Your hormone progesterone is peaking at this time, estrogen is dropping. And this happens over a curve. So during the luteal phase, the hormones are rising and slowly dropping. When they drop to the lowest point, that is when you begin menstruating and start back at cycle day 1.
What are some signs that your menstrual cycle and your hormones are out of whack?
This is such a great question, Sarah. So if you're bleeding longer than 8 days per cycle, if you are having a cycle shorter than 24 days from menstruation to menstruation, if you're having a cycle longer than 36 days from menstruation to menstruation, all of these are signs that something is potentially going on under the surface. There could be an underlying health condition or a disorder. Nothing to get really scared about. We can address these things, but these are signs from your body that something is going on. If you're skipping periods, if you're losing a lot of blood, if you're having large clots, if you are having severe symptoms, all of these are messages from your body telling you, hey, we need something that we're not getting, and this needs to be addressed.
So what if someone's period isn't in that typical 28-day range? They're 24, 36, or something different. What can they do to figure out where they are within the phase of their menstrual cycle?
This is such a great question, and so many people fall in this category. That's why I created the premenstrual symptom mapping kit. It's a free download. You go in and you follow the directions. They're very clear, and you're just going to start to chart out when you're bleeding and the following days, what symptoms you're experiencing, how long they're lasting, and you can really get acquainted with what you're experiencing, and having that knowledge can really help you change the experience. But first you need to know what is happening, how it's playing out. So that Symptom Mapper kit is a really great tool to just start understanding what your unique pattern is and whether or not it's falling within those healthy ranges. And you can really determine which cycle phase you're in by collecting that data.
So if you're at that point and you know something's going on, or they think that they might be experiencing PMDD, they know that they're experiencing PMDD or postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety or just a hormone imbalance, what do they do?
Well, it really depends on which approach they want to take. You have many options, and I think that is the biggest message that I want to share with people, is that you have options for addressing this. A lot of times people are going to just go straight to their OBGYN, and that's great. There are some tests that should be ran to make sure there aren't underlying health conditions. All of these signs point to different reproductive health conditions that could be showing up based on what the symptoms are. Like if you're having severe pain, you need to be evaluated for endometriosis. If you're having severe psychological symptoms linked to your cycle before you bleed, this is a sign of potentially a hormone imbalance or PMDD. So it depends on what the person experiencing these symptoms feels is the right approach for them. I would always suggest going to your physician, having those tests ran, making sure that there aren't underlying health conditions that are perpetuating the symptoms, like a thyroid condition, and many other things that could be going on. But then beyond that, generally your physician is most likely going to offer you hormonal contraception. Maybe they'll suggest some supplements, but in my personal experience, dealing with these conditions for so long, like there isn't often much support beyond that. So I think what's really important to take away from this conversation here is there actually are lots of other things. There's diet, there's movement, there's stress, so many other factors impact your cycle. And so you don't only have one option to take a medication or to, take this supplement or that supplement. There's so many different things you can do to support your cycle and see changes in these symptoms.
So let's talk about yoga. How can yoga help support your menstrual cycle?
In so many ways, Sarah. Yoga is a great tool for regulating your nervous system, for slowing down, for calming down, and a lot of the premenstrual symptoms that people are experiencing, a lot of the hormone dysregulation is coming from what's called the HPA axis. This is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is linked into your nervous system. And we're all living in a high stress world, and that system, the HPA axis, impacts your ovarian axis. So they're inextricably linked. If we were in a really stressful situation, we were in a famine, we were in war, your stress response system would tell your ovarian system, hey, let's maybe not make a baby right now. That's not a great option. So this is a built-in adaptive mechanism that protects you. And so if you're living with a lot of stress, it's going to impact your hormonal cycle. Like it will. There's no way around this. So using yoga as a tool to regulate the nervous system is so impactful. It is so effective at addressing many of these underlying body systems that are contributing to hormone dysregulation and symptoms.
That's amazing. I've never heard it put so clearly. It's like we know this intuitively as women, like stress equals worse hormonal cycle, and like probably we feel better when we do yoga, when we reduce our stress, and then everything else kind of falls into place. But I've never known about that connection. That's like mind blowing.
It's really cool to learn how your body works and finally, because a lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm broken, something's wrong with me. It's like, no, your body is functioning perfectly normally. Like, this is how it works.
Right. Your body is serving to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
How should your yoga and your exercise fluctuate throughout your hormone cycle?
This is such a cool conversation. You require different types of movement depending on which cycle phase you're in because your energy levels fluctuate. Hormones equal your mood. Like what's happening with your hormones completely makes up how you feel like you are, your perception of yourself, all of this. It's very deeply linked. And there's so many other hormones. A lot of the happy brain chemicals that we feel are hormones. A lot of the drive to eat or not eat are based on hormones. So as those are changing throughout the cycle, you're going to have more energy. You're going to have different dietary needs. You're going to have different movement needs. And when you're bleeding in that menstrual phase, pushing yourself really hard to get in those hard workouts, to do power yoga during that time is actually an added stressor. We talked about that HPA axis. You're really just pushing your body into a framework that it isn't at that time. So lining up your yoga practice and your movement practices with the fluctuations in energy and the fluctuations with your hormones, again, supports the nervous system and supports all of your body systems that are linked with your hormonal system. Because if you're female, there's no separating body systems from hormones. So as you move through the cycle, you're going to move from lower energy, needing more restorative types of movement to more high intensity as you move toward ovulation, and then slowly tapering down into more strength training, back to restorative movement. All of this really supports what's called the infradian rhythm. So we have two different biological rhythms as females. We have the circadian rhythm, and all our body systems are operating on that daily. But then as a female, we also have what's called the infradian rhythm, which is that 28-ish day cycle of the menstrual cycle that we're moving through those hormone fluctuations. And so lining up your lifestyle with the infradian rhythm and keeping in mind the circadian rhythm really just creates this nourishing container and environment for you to thrive, rather than pushing basically your round self into like a square peg.
I love what you just said about mood and how your mood is correlated with your hormones. I feel like that right there is such a testament to you are not your mood, and your mood does not mean you're weak, and it does not mean that you have lack of control. It's your hormones. It takes like the fault out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a freeing and empowering feeling and statement, I think, for a woman to hear, to know that your mood is connected to your hormones. It's not your fault.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, having that understanding really changes the perception of yourself, allows you to be kinder to yourself. And this is where I think yoga is such a powerful, and I'm talking about all of yoga, not just the poses, like how you're living your life, how you're breathing, your posture, how you're spending your time. The mindfulness aspect of yoga really helps you bring more kindness and understanding to yourself. So when you pair these two things together, cycle knowledge and yoga, it's just such a nourishing combination. You can really heal, you can accept yourself, you can really change your perception on who you are and separate your behavior, your feelings from like that innate sense of your being, essentially.
And this is why I'm so excited about this monthly menstrual cycle yoga calendar that we just made. So let's give everyone just a taster of what they should expect in each phase. So we talked about the menstrual cycle phases, your menstrual phase, your follicular phase, your ovulatory phase, and your luteal phase. So what type of activity or energy levels should they nourish in those phases?
Yeah, so let's start with the menstrual phase, right? You're bleeding, you are probably experiencing some symptoms. You're going to be more fatigued at this time. Menstruation is a massive vascular event. It requires so much nutrients, so much energy. So letting your body go through that experience and really just supporting it, holding space for it, nourishing, not pushing yourself. So something like slower movement, something like yin yoga, as we've decided, is going to be a great pairing with that phase of the cycle, because you really just want to slow down. You're feeling more internal at that time, reflect on your life, and really just not do, just be. That is the being phase.
And then when you get out of that phase and you start moving into your follicular phase, so right after your period is over.
Yeah, in the follicular phase, your hormones are rising, your energy level is going to start to rise. And this is where you can move into more strenuous movement. You don't want to go from that really restorative type of movement straight into like a HIIT high intensity workout. You want to really slowly move up in intensity. So I think we were talking about moving into some hatha yoga at that time, something like a little more challenging, but not full power. And then as you move into the ovulatory phase, you're going to be the highest energy, the most social. This is a really good time to go to classes with your friends, to go out hiking, to do a run, to do an intensive bike ride, or something like power yoga, or more intensive vinyasa at that time is kind of what you were saying would fit best.
And then when you start to come back down to your luteal.
And then you're just downshifting. In the early days of luteal, you're going to have more energy, but you want to be mindful of that transition, because you can push yourself too hard in luteal. So you just want to be paying attention. Hey, this could be 10 to 14 days. I just ovulated. I might be feeling more energetic. I can still push through and do some of those more high intensity workouts. But as I get deeper into the luteal phase, I'm going to downshift back through the different levels until you get to the lowest level again, and you're back doing something like gentle walking, stretching, yin yoga. But the luteal phase is going to be really good for strength training specifically, where you're doing slower movements, but you're really still building power, building strength, supporting yourself through those phases, but you're not like running a 5K or doing a HIIT workout.
So even if you were doing like a yoga calendar or weightlifting throughout the month, you can still apply this knowledge by knowing that during that menstrual time of your phase, you're going to be lower energy, nourish at lower energy, maybe use all the modifications, embrace the rest, the shavasana, the meditation, take the opportunities to skip flows and just rest on your mat for a little bit. But then those same videos and those same practices or those same workouts, if you're doing them during that ovulatory, that really high peak energy part, that's where you go for it. You'll feel it within your body as you begin to work with your cycle.
Yeah, and that's something that's so exciting about this. As you get this knowledge and develop the understanding and connect it with your own unique cycle, regardless of what's going on. You know, some of us are cycling regularly, some of us are irregular, some of us are on different types of hormonal contraceptive. You can still connect with these rhythms. If you are on a contraceptive, you're not in a lot of cases going to be ovulating. So it's not the same natural rhythm, but you still can align and understand your body in this way and start to shift towards supporting it. And the more you do that, the more feedback and information you get, and you really will start to notice when you're ovulating, you're like ready to go. And then luteal, you really need to slow down and support yourself. So exactly, Sarah. I love the idea too in menstrual of like using the modifications, using the supports that come with that to just lean into your biology.
So what is one major takeaway that you want everyone to learn from watching this video today?
Just please don't continue suffering with symptoms because you think you have to. Having a period does not equal suffering. That's not what it's about. And there's so much that you can do to feel better. So if you recognize that you really are experiencing a lot of pain or psychological symptoms, feeling depressed or anxious before your cycle, don't feel like you have to continue living like that. Like that is not true. There's so much that you can do. You can build in a yoga practice linked with your cycle phases. You can educate yourself. You can make some small lifestyle changes that have a really huge impact on your day-to-day life, because the implications of cycle symptoms are bigger than just you and how you feel. They affect everyone around you. They affect your goals and how you go about achieving them, what you believe is possible for yourself. They affect your relationships, your job performance, everything, how you mother. So this is a really serious conversation, but it's not hopeless. You can change things and you can feel better.
And you can get help and one-on-one personalized guidance through people like Jess, a period coach.
Thank you, Sarah.
If you enjoyed this video and you want to check out the month-long menstrual cycle yoga calendar, it's available in the SarahBethYoga app. Just click the first link in the comments or description below. And if you want to work directly with Jess, get personalized coaching, or just get her free symptom mapper to get clear on your hormonal symptoms throughout your cycle, just click the second link in the description of the comments below. Now, don't forget to let us know in the comments what your favorite yoga videos, tips, or tricks to help you get through the hardest part of your menstrual cycle is, so we can keep this conversation going. Now, have a great day. Thank you for joining us today, and namaste.